The War of 1812. There were two sides in the War of 1812: America versus Britain and the Native American tribes. The tribes chose to fight with the British because American settlers had been pushing west, taking their lands. Also, the British had been giving them guns. American president was James Madison. The causes: Britain was giving guns to the natives, all the stuff that was happening on with the ships, the seizing of the cargo, the impressments with the sailors. And finally, nationalism. This is extreme pride in one's country. At this point, America was getting more confident in itself and felt like they could take on the British. Early days of the war. When the war started, the U.S. was not prepared, which is interesting because the United States was the one that declared war on Britain and decides to go after Canada. The reason they weren't prepared: the president prior, Jefferson, had shrunk down the size of the military, and at the time there were less than 7,000 soldiers in the Army, and the Navy only had 16 ships. So they were taking on the British, who were way more powerful in with not that big of a military. As far as the battles go, we're not going to talk much about individual battles. We will talk about where the fighting took place. First place was Canada. The reason the United States invades Canada, and in order to take over Canada, you need control of the Great Lakes. The U.S. did think the Canadians would support them, and we would come in, we would invade, we would take over Canada and free them from the British. This was not the case. The Canadians were not pleased that we were invading. Second thing, remember this is going to become important. When we were invading Canada, we went to Toronto, American troops did, and they burnt down the British Parliament building, which was the equivalent of the US Capitol. The other place we saw fighting in the early stages of the war were in the South. This is places like Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, and this was mainly fighting against Native Americans, not British soldiers. And Andrew Jackson led the charge down there, defeats the natives, and he'll become a war hero and later a president. Okay, so for the first 2 years of the war, the fighting was in Canada and the South. Then we see a little bit of a change. In 1814, the British are no longer fighting the French, so they're able to send more of their army to North America, to the United States, to fight the Americans. And in August of 1814, the British are going to decide to attack Washington, D.C.